Hello and welcome. In this chapter we will write our first Go program. As a tradition we will create a classic Hello World program. It is a program that prints Hello World string in a terminal after you run it. In this series we will do all examples in TDD way. TDD or Test-Driven Development is a special way of writing software. That special way of writing software is based on Test-Driven Development Cycle. Test-Driven Development Cycle consists of the following steps. First one is add test, means you have to write test first to the code that solves your problem. First step is add test, means you have to write test first to the code that solves your problem. The second step is run test. All new tests must be failed because you don't have enough code that passes this test. The third step is write the simplest code that passes your test. The next step could be described as all tests now should be passed. The fifth step is refactor is needed, using tests after each refactor to ensure that functionality is preserved. And the final step is repeat the cycle. So, for our first and all future examples, we're gonna follow the TDD way in general and TDD cycle in particular. I found tests quite useful in daily programming practice, but also it's a very practical way to learn a new programming language. So first of all, we need to create a folder for our project. Let's call it Go Sandbox, but you can name it whatever you want. I decided to name it a sandbox because it will be a folder with a bunch of small examples that are mostly not related to each other. It will be basically a sandbox for our experiments with Go. I will create a folder using terminal emulator. You can use any terminal emulator. For example, you can use one of the most popular terminal emulators on macOS, which is called iTerm2. In the terminal, open the path where you're gonna create a folder for the project. Use the command cd. Now I'm in a folder with all my personal projects. I'm gonna create a folder called Go Sandbox using command make directory. Open this folder in the terminal using cd command again. You will need the terminal with the opened folder later. After creating a folder, open it in your editor or IDE of choice. I use different editors and IDEs for writing code, such as Golang, VS Code and NeoVim. But now I will open it inside NeoVim. Once we open the project folder in our editor, we need to talk about a Go program structure. First of all Go projects must have Go mod file, where you define information about your module, such as module's path, the minimum version of Go what uses this module, and information about dependencies on other modules, etc. But what is the module? Go code is organized into modules and packages. Basically, every Go program or project is a module. It should have unique identifier path, which will be a location from which you can download this module. Module can be distributed as a dependency for another module. So if you don't have Go mod file in your project, you need to use Go tool command Go mod to create it, or you can create it manually. Okay, let's go back to the terminal and open projects folder again. Type command go mod init and module name, which is in our case Go Sandbox. You will see that a file Go mod appeared in the folder. Now let's follow our TDD cycle and do the first step. The first step of test-driven development cycle is to add tests. But in the first example, let's start with creating a file that will contain the simplified version of the code, for which we will add test. We're doing it first just to have some basic understanding of how Go code looks like. So first of all, let's start with creating a new folder for our package Hello World in the root of the project folder. Open a new folder in the terminal. There, inside the folder, create a file called helloworld.go by using command touch, but we can create it inside your code editor, and open the file in your code editor. Our Go file was created and it's empty for now. Just follow me and write the first line in the file. The very first line says package hello world. and that line is package declaration. Package declaration always begins with the keyword package and must be in every Go file, and it specifies to which package file belongs to. But what is package? Go programs are structured into packages, some kind of grouping units which Go program consists of. And as I mentioned before, every module has at least one package. We will talk about packages in the future chapters. Okay, we have our first Go file, helloworld.go. So what's next? In most programming languages, the program hello world contains a few lines of code where you can call some method with the string hello world as the first argument of this method. When you run the program, this method prints the string in the terminal. Since we're following the test-driven development way, we need to write a test that checks that our code works correctly and prints a string hello world. But we are not going to check the method that prints the string in the terminal. It requires a bit more knowledge for a first lesson. Instead, we're gonna write a simple function called hello world that returns a string hello world, obviously. If you had an experience with the other programming languages before, you probably know what function is. But if not, here is a simple explanation what function is and what it's used for. Function is a named block of code that performs a specific task. It is like a mini program within your program what you can call and use multiple times. A function has a name what you choose to describe what it does. In our case, its name is hello world. It can take inputs or parameters if needed to perform its task. Our function hello world won't have any parameters. It can also return a result if needed after completing its task. As I mentioned before, our function must return a string hello world. Inside the function, you write the code that defines the task or actions it should perform. For a function hello world, we will write a test that checks the function and returns expected value. And then, in our main file of the program, we will call the function hello world to pass the result of calling this function to the method that prints string in the terminal. Okay, now let's start to write function hello world. To write a function in Go, you need to use keyword func. This function doesn't return any values and doesn't have any logic inside for now. However, if we still follow test-driven development cycle, we have to write the code inside the function on step 3. So let's go back to the step 1 and add a test for function hello world. In the folder of package hello world, create the file called helloworld_test.go. There are some naming rules for tests. Any test files that will be run by Go built-in test runner must be named as x_test.go, where x is the name of the file that contains code which tests are written for. In our case, we're gonna write tests for the code inside a file called helloworld.go, so we need to name our test file helloworld_test.go. In Go, to test some function, you need to write another function, a test function, inside the test file. This test function should contain checking of the function what we want to test. In our case, in the test function we need to check what function hello world returns the string hello world. So first of all, we need to write a function called test hello world. The name test hello world is very important here. There is a convention for naming a test function which looks like test x. The x is the name of the function what we want to test, which is hello world. To check the result of executing the function, we need to save this result somewhere first. We can use a variable to save the result of executing the function. A variable is a named container that holds a value. It's like a labeled box that can store different types of information such as numbers, text, or more complex data. A variable has a name that you choose to identify it. In our case, the name is got. It can hold different types of values, such as numbers, strings, or booleans. Since function hello world returns a string, the variable got also should have a string type. You can assign a value to a variable using equal sign operator. Once a value is assigned, you can change it or use it in your program. There are several ways of declaring a variable in Go, but now we're gonna use the shortest one. It's called short variable declaration and it uses a special operator. The short variable declaration combines declaration and assignment of the variable. That means what you declare a type of the variable and also store some value in the variable. In our test function, we're gonna create a variable called got. The line hello world means that we are calling the function hello world and it should return some value. And that value should be stored in the variable got. Now let's declare another variable called want. Okay, we just created a new variable called want and stored a value there, which is a string hello world. We're gonna use this variable to compare it with the variable got, and that's how we will check that function hello world returns a correct value. Let's use if statements to compare variables. If statement in Go is pretty the same as in other programming languages. It's used to make decisions based on a condition. It checks if something is true or false and executes different code depending on the result. We're gonna use inequality operator to check if variable want and got have different values. Okay, so what are we gonna do if variables will have different values? We need to show a message what this test failed. This message will be printed in the terminal, where we will run tests for our Go program. To show the message about failed test, we need to use a special methods what can be provided to us by a Go built-in testing framework. We can have access to Go built-in testing framework's methods in each test functions. All we need to do is just to specify a parameter of the test function. So let's do it. In function test hello world, we're gonna specify the parameter called t, which has a special type, which is actually a struct. But don't focus too much on that now, we will talk about this later. All we need to know is that parameter t includes all methods of Go built-in test framework what we need. The parameter t has type capital T, and that capital T type provided by testing package, and that's why we write testing.t, not just capital T. So basically we have a package called testing, which is Go built-in package. However, to use type T from package testing, we need to be sure that we have access to things from package testing in our source file. And for that, we need to import package testing in this file. In the beginning of the file, right below package declaration, write a new line, import testing. And now inside if statement body, let's call a method that will show a message that test failed. We're using method called errorf, and it takes the string as the first parameter. This string will be printed as a message that test failed. You might notice that string contains some special characters. The thing is that method errorf replaces all these substrings by values from parameter after the first one, but there are plenty of combinations of substrings which begins with %, and they all have their special meaning. All substrings begins with %, called formatting verbs in Go. In this case, formatting verb %q means that value from a second parameter will be wrapped into double quotes and then inserted into the string from a first parameter. Okay, they finish with our first test, and it means that we've done first step in the test-driven development cycle. Now it's time to make a step 2, run the test. To run the test, we're gonna use Go tool. Open the terminal in the project folder. Now in the terminal, type the command go test. It will show you the message. It says that the function that we check in and call inside the test does not return any values. And now they passed step 2 in our test-driven development cycle. Now it's time to do the step 3 and write the simplest code that will pass our test. Open the file helloworld.go and go to the function declaration. Write type string after paid parentheses. Now Go is expecting that function helloworld returns a string value. However, we didn't write the code that returns any values from helloworld, and that's why your IDE will probably show you some signs that something is wrong. Okay, now let's write this line, which means that function helloworld returns a string. And let's run test again. Okay, they did enough to call our function inside the test properly, and finally we will see that our test case is failed. That's alright, they just need to make sure that our test works correctly. Now it's time to write the code inside helloworld to pass the test. Okay, great. There are no many things to refactor, so we can skip the step 5. We successfully finished our test-driven development cycle. And now let's complete our program what will print the string hello world in the terminal. We need to run our program, and for that we can use a special command provided by Go tool. But it's not gonna work for several reasons. First of all, we didn't call our hello world function anywhere and didn't use the method that prints string in the terminal. But there do we need to write this code? We cannot just call the function inside the file we want, like in the programming languages such as JavaScript or Python. In Go, we need to have a function called main, which is an entry point to our program. This function will be called first when we run our program. Let's write this function in file hello.go. Now we need to use some method that will print the string in the terminal. Go has built-in package called fmt, which stands for formatting. The package fmt has a bunch of methods for formatting and printing strings. The method what we need is called printen, so let's use it in our code. And don't forget about import of package, which method you're gonna use in your code. The method printen takes the string as first argument and prints it in the terminal. Okay, now it's time to run our program. Open the terminal in the root of the project folder and type go run hello.go. It will show you the message. The thing is that every Go program should also have main package, the same way as main function. So main package is the entry point in Go program. Then you run a Go program by a command go run. It will look at the package main first and will execute the function main inside that package. So all we need to do is just to create a file called main.go in the root of the project folder. Inside the new file, write package declaration line and move function main from a file helloworld.go to main.go. Since we're using the function helloworld from a package helloworld, we need to import this package in the file main.go. Also, don't forget about importing the package fmt. But this is still not enough for this code to work. In Go, if you use some function from another package, you need to write the package's name before the name of the function on the line where you call it. Like that. Alright, let's try to run our program again. But in this time you need to run the file main.go in the project root folder instead of helloworld.go in the hello world package folder. This should work perfectly. You can also run it by using go run dot instead of writing file name properly, since it will look at the package main first anyway.